Welcome back to the Afane Substack publication, ladies and gentlemen. For today, we're not going to go over Christians needing to take responsibility. We're not going to cover AI. We're not doing any of that. In fact, I want to talk a little bit more about the issues that I'm seeing with the DC universe, specifically under James Gunn leadership, or rather lack thereof. Now, I don't know if you guys have been following the stories as it relates to the DC universe or the things happening with Warner Brothers or with James Gunn specifically, but there are a couple of things before we jump into the nitty-gritty of today's episode. So just a few, I guess you can say news, if you will, that's come out this past week. First things first, I'm hearing that James Gunn, this is all from what I'm hearing from watching other podcasters, okay? So this isn't like I'm breaking news. I don't troll Twitter looking for this stuff. I literally wait to hear some stuff about what the heck is happening with my favorite superhero franchise, other than mine, of course, to see what the heck is going on. And I do want to tie this into the episode that I released last week, Friday, when I was talking about the problems with the audience and Clayface and the disturbance that's coming out of DC. But before we do that, I do want to give some news about what James Gunn has recently said. Apparently there was no plan when he started this. So him launching his version of DC with Creature Commandos and, him trying to revitalize it by leveraging Snyderverse's Peacemaker, but making it different in a way, because honestly, I don't see how he made it his own version. The retarded Superman animated series that he came up with, as well as that Blue Beetle movie, and then obviously that ridiculous Superman movie. So he had no plan. There was no cohesive strategy, despite what he said in an interview he gave before he launched his dang version of this universe. He said he wanted to world build. It already existed. He wanted to create the world of Justice League Unlimited. Let me repeat that. In the interview that he gave when he was launching his version of the DC universe, he said he wanted to turn what was already created with the Justice League Unlimited cartoon and turn it into movies, television shows, cartoons, and even possibly video games. His words. I'm not even ad-libbing. But then to find out that he really had no game plan, that was the first thing that I found out. The second thing that I found out is, and this is something that's bothering me a lot, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, but I don't know if you guys have heard that Zack Snyder has been in some way brought on to Paramount. And as you guys know, Paramount is the one with the best bid for Warner Brothers, which is the studio that owns the DC franchise. And so it's already looking like there's these inklings of pushing James Gunn out. Warner Brothers is going to be bought by Paramount, which has brought in Zack Snyder. He's making all these posts on social media, of posting Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, Ben Affleck's Batman, Henry Cavill's Superman, which is kind of revitalizing the so-called Snyderverse. Now that I've said all the news, here's my issue. And it's an issue that I'm having even, again, with the audience. And I've noticed this in my exchanges in the comment section, not under my Afane YouTube channel, but like my personal YouTube where I'm just watching videos. I get in the comment sections of these things, and I've stated how the problem with all of these so-called leaders of this franchise is that no one is giving what the audience wants, which is pretty much just turn the Justice League cartoon into live action. It's what we want. That's what I said. And someone responded to me, speak for yourself. We want the Snyderverse back. What in the actual F, people? No, we don't want the Snyderverse. Here's the thing. When we had the Snyderverse, a lot of us complained about what we got. A lot of us did. The majority of us did. And I'm going to tell you why a lot of us did. And I don't know if perhaps James Gunn just left a bad taste in everybody's mouth that they are so desperate for Snyder, which is what I'm leaning toward, or at least that's what I'm hoping for, that they just don't like James Gunn's take at all, that they were willing to take Snyder, because at least it was good storytelling, at least. And there was a cohesive message there, with the exception of Patty Jenkins' Wonder Woman 2, because she wrecked Wonder Woman in that movie. Anyways, my problems with the Snyderverse. And then we're going to get into my what I really want to share with all of you for today as far as the DC universe, what I want to see moving forward. Snyderverse is way too dark for me. And I get that people are saying that the Avengers, Marvel is the more lighter tone. It's the more fun universe. And DC has more depth. And I'm trying to figure out how did they come to that conclusion that the Avengers, that the Marvel universe has less depth than DC? Ultimately, they have a fascist that they have to deal with Thanos. We have a fascist when you look at Darkseid, especially because Thanos was inspired by Darkseid. Debate that's been had between Marvel and DC fans for decades now. But anyways, you have, spoiled brat gods who learn what hard work is and who understand the value of teamwork and contribution and everything. That's what you learn with Thor. There's so much there. A boy becoming a man. When you look at Spider-Man, how is this less depth? No, it's because they knew how to have a fun take with it. But still, you can get the depth. X-Men, for crying out loud. Talk about like a really hardcore story here. These mutants were being arrested, they were being tracked, they had no sense of privacy, they had nothing, and they were being hunted by humans. And had it not been for Professor X to provide sanctuary and to be their advocate, what more could happen to mutants? This one difference between them and humans created havoc. Is that not depth? Oh no, but DC has more. DC has to be darker. That was the most outrageous argument I was seeing from audiences in the comment section, specifically about how one could be more fun and the other couldn't because it has more depth. That makes no sense when there's a lot of deep darkness that we're seeing. A lot of these characters have to deal with in the comic books, maybe not in their cartoons, Marvel anyway, because their cartoons always were appealing to children. I mean, honestly, all their cartoons were. I would have to say DC did a better job with the cartoons. And I'm talking about Justice League, the first one, and Justice League Unlimited. It did a lot better in attracting even adult audiences, not Marvel. When you look at Snyder, I don't like how he did Superman. Superman has a God complex. I prefer James Gunn's Superman, not the movie per se, but Superman's character, Clark Kent. The reason why this version was better than Snyder is because Clark wanted to be Clark. Clark loved being Clark. And Superman is who he had to be to save the day, but ultimately he preferred to be Clark. He loved being Clark Kent. He loved his family. He wasn't about being the son of Krypton. He loved being the son of John and Martha Kent. That is who he loved being. And he loved the idea of being like humans. Not necessarily the so-called weak and feeble kind, but that's the juxtaposition between Superman and Lex Luthor. That James Gunn's Superman really understood. Lex Luthor is a man trying to be a god, and Superman, who could easily try to run around Metropolis in the world like he is. And instead, he works hard and he loves hard and he protects his friends and his family so much so he protects life. So much so he saves a dog and a squirrel. People saying this movie is ridiculous. It is a comic book movie. It's not meant to be taken so seriously. There's supposed to be fun in this. The problem is that it was so silly and so ridiculous that a lot of people had a hard time connecting to the story. And I get that. And I completely think that's fair criticism. But the character, the way that Superman/Clark Kent was written, the man himself is way better than the one in Snyderverse. I hated that God complex. I especially hated him in the black suit. He was walking around all son of Krypton. I hated him in that suit. I hated it. I also hated the fact that he let his father die. That is not Clark. It's one thing when John is going to be killed by like a heart attack or something, right? Because that is something that the Man of Steel cannot save him from. That is mortality. But he can damn sure save his father from a tornado. That was one of my biggest issues in Man of Steel. And you get to Justice League and he's in the black suit, and it's supposed to just help him heal after he died. Another thing that I hated about the Snyderverse Justice League, there's two biggies, and I don't know if you guys caught on to this, but the one thing that killed me is that Doomsday was created by Lex Luthor. What? Lex Luthor? He decides that he's going to mutilate the body of Zod to create Doomsday? He's not a creature sent through space from Darkseid, from Apocalypse, from the planet Apocalypse. No, he's not sent there, sent from there. Lex Luthor did this. Lex? Seriously? This demonic thing doesn't come from Apocalypse, the hell planet? Sent by Darkseid. But you know why he couldn't come from Apocalypse? You know why Snyder couldn't allow Doomsday to come from Apocalypse and why it had to be Lex Luthor? Because he changed the science of the damn boom tubes. There are these magic boxes. Technology so beyond our years and understanding that it seems like magic, she says. There are 3 boxes that when they merge, it wipes out all life on Earth. No. Boom tubes, they're just portals. You open one up and it booms you, and you can walk through it and you go from Earth to another planet. Darkseid is supposed to be coming through the boom tube. Why did he make it this weapon of mass destruction? I'm not saying that it's not what turned Cyborg into Cyborg, because it is. That's exactly what turned Cyborg into Cyborg. It is. That's the only thing he got right in that movie. But the boom tubes, how are we going to introduce the planet of New Genesis? How are we going to see that conflict between Apocalypse and New Genesis, and how New Genesis brings, Earth under their protection, as we saw in the Superman animated series, the original? No, we don't get any of that because Snyder decided that it was going to be this weapon of mass destruction, that when these boxes come together, all life is wiped out. These were bad concepts. This was not what we wanted. We wanted the Justice League, despite what these audience are saying in the comment section. I'm hoping, again, it's because they're so put off by James Gunn that this is why they want Snyder back. But this is why I don't want him back. Find somebody new. Ellisons, do not bring the Snyderverse back. Don't think because, this worked better than this, that we should just go with what worked. That is lazy thinking. Just find a real fan to run the whole damn department. Franchise something. Patty Jenkins clearly can't put aside her politics, clearly, because she ruined Wonder Woman 2. On top of that, another problem with the Snyderverse, all the gods are dead, which is why her second movie was crap. Because you killed Hades. You killed all of the gods. There's no Hermes, there's no Hades. And if you remember the Justice League cartoon, there's a whole episode about how Diana has to put Hades back on the throne because this villain, Faust, went to war with Hades and removed him from the throne of Tartarus, and she had to go into hell to put Hades back on the throne. That could have been the movie. No, you killed all the gods, Patty. This is the problem with the Snyderverse. This is not the Justice League. This is not what we want. And so these audiences who are running around here saying that this is what we want, you're full of it. Okay? You're completely full of that. No one wants that nonsense. We don't. We don't want the dark world of Snyder. And I don't want the disturbed, disgusting, just like the unsettling of Clayface. I'm so sick of this. These versions of realism suck. And none of them are compelling in a way that I enjoy. Not one of them. And that's what brings me to the subject of the real subject of today's episode. I know I went on a rant there about Snyder, but I couldn't help it. Could not help it. It's a problem. And now James Gunn, knowing that there's not a plan, definitely confirms to me that he's a liar. He lied. He said he was going to give us a Justice League cartoon. He totally botched that whole thing. And so now we're getting this so-called realistic Clayface. And if it doesn't do well, cue the Snyderverse. But all I can say is that none of it is realistic. None of these stories that came from Snyder or even James Gunn version are stories that are telling the truth of what we know of the Justice League. Like, not one of them are. And so before I really jump into it, I really want to compare. I want to speak to specifically, let me say that. I want to speak to specifically something that a person said when I mentioned in last week's episode about realism and how this is how villains would be, and this is what all this, that, and the third, right? I want to compare Clayface with another character, but from the Justice League, okay? I'm going to pull up this clip. And I hope you guys remember it. And if you haven't, I say get a HBO subscription ASAP and watch the Justice League. Okay? Because this is a remarkable episode. Because I want to show you all how I expect, or how I expected James Gunn to, what I expected of him to give me. Like, I wasn't expecting what I got so far from him. And I was not. I was expecting the Justice League. Compelling, emotional, realistic stories, as I believe realism to be, as I got from the cartoon. He wants to show a character like Clayface, showing us showing us as a man, dissolving and into this distorted, disgusting skin thing. And people say that's realistic. A man who wants to stay in this fallen state. As if there aren't the characters who haven't been distorted in some other kind of way. And that's what I'm going to show you all today. I'm going to pull up this clip. Now, I hope you guys saw this cartoon. If you didn't, well, then that's on you. But here is a scene. Here's a scene from the Justice League cartoon. It's with Hawkgirl and with Solomon Grundy. This is around the episode where there's like this invasion happening. There's always an invasion from these interdimensional beings. And Solomon Grundy is fighting alongside the Justice League. But there's a reason for why he's fighting. And that's what you're kind of going to get to see in this clip. But now Hawkgirl and Grundy have befriended one another. They fought and saved each other's lives in this fight, in this battle, in this specific episode. And again, I implore you all to get an HBO subscription and watch that episode. But here we go. I'm just going to hit play and we're going to watch this clip because it's one of my favorites. And be prepared because I'm going to get emotional. This is like one of my favorite scenes.
Oh.
Grundy!
Grundy can't move. Bird knows. Get Grundy's soul for him.
Rest. I'll finish what you started.
You will not do this thing, Share Hall of Thanagar. Ixthuatru still has faith in you.
So do I.
I just want you guys to know that Solomon Grundy has asked Bird Nose to retrieve his soul for him. Okay? His soul.
Bird knows.
I'm here.
Grundy thinks he is going away now.
No. Just hang on.
Do you think Grundy's soul is waiting for him?
Grundy, I don't believe... Yes. It's waiting for you.
Then Grundy gets his reward.
She's crying. Gosh, this scene makes me emotional every time. It makes me want to cry. Grundy's a villain, for crying out loud. He's a bad guy. And here she is, a superhero, a member of the pantheon of the Justice League. And she's crying over this dead criminal, this dead bad guy. This is one of the best moments.
I tried to do this according to human customs.
You honor his memory.
He was happy at the end. I still don't understand why.
It's faith, Hawkgirl.
You're not supposed to understand
You're not
it.
supposed to
You
understand
just
it.
have it.
You just have it.
Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. I mean, that's the Justice League. That's it. That's what I want. This is a creature who has no memory, no control, and no soul. And literally asked before he dies, do you think Grundy's soul is waiting for him? And here you have a character, Shiera, Hawkgirl, a being from a whole other planet, Thanagar, who has no sense of faith. She's intelligent. She's smart. She is capable. And she's a hero. And yet she has no faith. Notice how she said, Grundy, I don't believe. And before she finishes that, she looks at him and she notices that there's something in him. She doesn't lie to him. She doesn't just tell him some pretty lie just so he can feel better. It's that she noticed something in him, that a man who you would expect to have no expectation of a soul or of faith has it. And so when he says, do you think it's waiting for him? And she goes, no, Grundy, I don't believe. And then she takes a minute and he smiles and she says, yes, it's waiting for you. And he says, then Grundy gets his reward. How does a man who's been distorted, a man with no soul, who's been a violent criminal, know that there's something more than this life, than this existence? He's been a villain. This idea of getting his soul back is how he's been manipulated for most of his existence as Solomon Grundy, born on a Monday. But no, audiences today, no, that's unrealistic. It's naive to think that, to see a character fall from grace, to be reborn in a fallen state, to still believe. Why is that not the Justice League that we're getting? Why is that not the DC that we are seeing? Clayface is modern storytelling. It's calling distortion honest. That people are just broken, identity is just unstable, and redemption is unlikely, and hope is naive. What is the matter? That's Clayface. And that's okay. That's what the audience wants, clearly, because you're advocating, a lot of them are advocating for the Snyderverse to come back. And I damn sure didn't feel all excited and hopeful when I watched the Snyderverse either. I felt the exact same way I feel when I watch James Gunn's. There's nothing to feel. When you look at Clayface or Peacemaker, there's no joy in it. People are just broken. It's expected. Hope is naive. But this version of Justice League, what I just showed you all, it disrupts that entirely. I mean, you really got to think about this. Like I said, Grundy is a character that is used by others. He is a man stripped of his original identity, and he's reduced to nothing but his violent animalistic instinct. And yet, he does not accept that as the final straw, that being it. This is a being who wants his soul back, and he fights for it. And he dies expecting it would be his reward. It's why he asked. Meanwhile, you got Hawkgirl, who again, she's powerful, she's a rational thinking alien, but she has no faith. She doesn't believe in that, like at all. And right when she's about to tell him her truth, she takes a minute and she stops. And she sees something in him. She recognizes that it's his faith is more important than her doubt of it. Which is why when you get to the end of that clip that I showed you, where she said he was happy at the end, I don't understand. I don't understand why he was happy. And Aquaman says, it's called faith. You're not meant to understand it. You just have it. That is the Justice League. That is the difference between DC and Marvel. That is what we were supposed to get. If you do not add that, then it won't be a great franchise. It's what's missing. Not the son of Krypton, not this distorted realism, faith. That's what's missing. It's like trying to do Lord of the Rings and not acknowledge the hint of Catholicism. It's why there's a different feeling when you watch the Hobbit movies versus the original Lord of the Rings movies. Something is lacking. This is the version of what I'm looking for from the DC. This is what we want. To the audiences who say, no, we want the Snyderverse. We want, we can't wait to see the Clayface movie. Why? Why? It makes no sense. In Genesis 1:27, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he, him, male and female created them. So if man is made in the image of God, then no distortion can fully erase that imprint of him, which is what you get with Grundy. Why he knew there was something more than the fallen state of which he was in. He always knew there was something more. That's why he could be manipulated. Because he was always fighting to get his soul back. I don't understand what's the matter with audiences. Grundy understands that even in a broken state, that there's something more. Clayface, it just says that this is it. There's nothing more, nothing to hope for. There's no protagonist that I saw anyway. Maybe we'll see more in the trailer. But this is the Justice League we are supposed to get. Turn these cartoons, that very episode, into the movie, into the series. Personally, they should just throw their hands up in the air, give the entire franchise over to the CW, because despite its failings, now that woke and DEI is officially off air, maybe they will do the Justice League right. Maybe they will get it because they understood I could root for Arrow and The Flash and Supergirl. Batwoman was like woke era. Just give us Batman. But let's call a spade. The CW has a much better take on how to make us feel hopeful. They would just turn these cartoons into the series. Why do we keep going back and forth about the Snyderverse and this nonsense with James Gunn? These are our options. Distortion is honest, or the son of Krypton God complex? Darkness is truth. That's what we get. These are the options. Not there's something more than the broken state. That one can be restored from the broken state. Not that. Not that we can have faith in our fellow man and faith in humanity. And despite the bad things a person has done, that one can overcome said bad things. Not that. No, we don't get that. I want you to understand, I'm not just comparing characters here and takes on this world. I'm really trying to raise awareness on the fact that the audiences are missing the heart of DC because that's what makes it different than Marvel. That is what has to be captured on film. And that's what you're not getting. That's why it sucks. When you look at James Gunn's version anyway, Snyder's is just all kinds of wrong, and it's distorted in a whole other way. It's not disturbing, it's just inaccurate. And it's darker. And I don't have faith in humanity. Or in the Pantheon, for that matter. Bruce Wayne, Batman is fighting way too violent. Superman has a god complex. The Pantheon, the heroes of which we are supposed to put our faith in, that's who we're supposed to put our faith in? Are you kidding me? Then Lex Luthor should exist, if that's the Pantheon. Bruce is volatile. What is the matter with people? Why is that the version that you want back? After you see Clayface, after you enjoy watching Clayface, a man who degrades into this thing, and there's no hope for him to be restored because we know he becomes a serial killer. Whereas in that clip I showed you, Grundy is still a man. He is still a man who remembers what he was made for, who remembers that he had a soul and he wants it back. And that is DC. Faith is DC. Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's Grundy all the way. Grundy has nothing visible to justify his belief. I mean, this is a man who can barely speak English because, he's pretty much brain dead. He's raised from the dead. He's a monster. No memory of who he was when he was a human or when he was, just a regular man. No confirmation of what comes next. Like nothing. There's nothing. But there is an expectation that he has, that there's something more, something that he's missing. And scripture calls that the substance. Pun intended, because the substance is his faith, which reframes the tension. Clayface just shows you what happens when identity collapses, where Grundy, he shows you what happens when hope remains anyway, despite the distortion. There's your differences. That's the Justice League that needs to be had. That's the DC that needs to be made. Not this crap that James Gunn is doing. And not the version that Snyder is doing. Because he's clearly not giving us this. That's exactly why when Aquaman tells Hawkgirl, it's faith. You're not supposed to understand it. You just have it. Grundy just had it. That's DC. That's the world that we want. I'm not saying I just want, just fun kiddie cartoon take on these stories. It's not it. I'm not looking for that. I want more. And that was more. That cartoon, man, I felt it. I wanted to cry. Every time I watch that scene, I want to cry. That is the world that I want. Why is it that audiences don't want that? Was there not enough depth there? A man with no soul, brought back from the dead, dying in the hopes of being reconnected to it. Befriending a hero that has kicked his butt more times than he can remember. Who has no faith, yet she puts aside her own beliefs and her own doubts because she sees his faith. That it's more important to affirm his faith. Because she sees it there. Like she can see that he has something. She just doesn't understand it. And it's okay that she doesn't. I'm telling you, you guys should watch that cartoon. Because if you watch that cartoon, then you'll understand that that is the world that needs to be made. That when he said, I'm creating a world, not world creating, we're not world building, it's already built, we just got to, make it. When he said we're going to take the Justice League cartoon and make it live action, this is what I saw him doing. This world right here, what I just showed you. I was so excited last year when he said it, or the year before last, whenever he started it. Like all you need are writers who understand, fans who understand that this is what we need to capture. This sense of hope. We can be real. but hope springs eternal. That's what we need to show. We need to make sure that when Wonder Woman comes out, we don't kill all the gods, for starters. But that Diana starts to understand that mankind in general are flawed and they're not meant to be perfect. That they are meant to be more than what they are, yes, but they are a young species and we have much to learn. From her perspective, anyway. I mean, Amazons are practically immortal and she's half demigod. She's a demigod. They are not frozen in time. Things change. Men, yes, can be violent, but not all of them. Yes, women can be a kind of way, but not all of them. Men and women together in family units. This isn't a bad thing. What was a bad thing was for you women to isolate yourself. How is she going to learn that the right way, appropriately? No, you're going to kill all the gods. You're going to kill all the gods. You're going to keep showing us the damn 80s. We're not going to see her grow and learn and recognize the faith in humanity that she can continue to have, not just for this one man she once loved back during the war against the Nazis. There's a whole world here that James Gunn could have made, that Zack Snyder could have made, and they chose not to. The DC animated universe did 10 times better. When I look at their Batman movies, when I look at their Justice League movies, with the exception of Apocalypse War, because I hated that movie. 100% hated it. Really because of where it ended, but that's me getting off track. I hope I wasn't all over the place. I hope you guys are able to follow my train of thought here. I'm just trying to present you all these different versions of the DC that we're talking about here between Snyderverse and James Gunn. And from the Justice League cartoon. I want you guys to know all the different versions that are available to us. And as fans and as audiences, this is what we should want. This Justice League cartoon made live action. That's it. And perhaps they just do better on television. Maybe movies isn't for DC. Maybe television shows and cartoons and comics is where they reign supreme. And that's okay. That is totally okay, because I'm over us going back and forth of which version, Snyder or Gunn. And no one's giving me the cartoons that I want made live action. The closest I get to any of that was the Arrowverse. And, pre that, it was, Smallville. This is it. It's it. Give it back to CW. Let them do it. Because, Arrow was dark, but I could root for him. He didn't stay in the fallen state. He was a man who was doing bad things, but wanted to be better. He stopped murdering the criminals. And he stopped issuing this dark version of justice for his city. He became better. CW understood that with Arrow. Snyder don't seem to get that. I don't want his version. It's dark. It's just dark. I don't have hope. I don't feel protected by those heroes. I don't love those heroes. I loved Clark Kent in James Gunn's movie. Didn't care for the movie entirely, but I loved Clark Kent. I loved Clark. I loved Superman. Not the movie, but the character, I mean. I loved it. I loved his take on Hawkgirl. I hated Green Lantern's suit. I hated that it wasn't a suit made by the Green Lantern ring. But all the more reason why I don't like lanterns, because how did that fit into his Superman movie? Honestly, it made no sense. But what I loved about him having all those characters was that, okay, we're not at year one Superman. He's introducing everybody, as many as he can, into this one movie. So we're not starting from the beginning. He's introducing a lot of the characters for the Pantheon early on. That's what I thought. That's why I thought he rushed this movie. It felt rushed to me, the Superman movie. But now he's got no plan. Clayface comes out. Lantern's is terrible. Supergirl doesn't look all that great. just give it back to the CW, because perhaps they'll capture what I get from Solomon Grundy and Shiera's moment in the Justice League cartoon. Maybe I'll get that. But again, I hope you guys are able to follow my train of thought. I say that a lot. You know, sometimes you guys got to try to keep up with my train of thought. It can go all over the place. But by the end, it kind of makes sense. So I hope it did for this episode and I wasn't just ranting. I had to let that out. This was kind of sort of a planned episode. I intended to do it differently, but with all the news that came out about Snyder and Paramount and Warner Brothers, there was just no way for me not to tie in the rumors about the Snyderverse and the audiences wanting that back. It's just, there was so much about this world, and I didn't want to have to do 3 episodes on it, and I wanted to just cover everything I possibly could and my own personal opinion of what I would like to see in this one. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Friday because, man, today was a day, and I really need a beer. But again, that is my time, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you all, and until next time.